Hey everyone, picture this for a second. You're standing in the middle of the universe, staring into the infinite void, and you start asking yourself, who am I? What's the point of my life? And then, out of nowhere, a quote hits you like a lightning bolt. God is dead. Those are the words of Friedrich Nietzsche, one of the most provocative and controversial thinkers in human history. But hold up. Don't think this is just some edgy anti-religion jab. It's way deeper than that. Today,
Over the next 20 minutes,
we're going to dive into the question, who is Friedrich Nietzsche? Why did this guy shake up the world, spark endless debates, and sometimes even drive people a little crazy with his ideas? So, buckle up. We're about to take a wild ride through the life, philosophy, and legacy of a man who lived fiercely, loved deeply, suffered immensely, and left behind ideas that still challenge how we see the world. Ready? Let's jump in. Life and career of Friedrich Nietzsche. Friedrich Wilhelm Nietzsche was born on October 15, 1844, in Rücken, a tiny village in Prussia, now part of Germany. Imagine a young kid growing up in a strict Lutheran pastor's family, with a dad who's both tough and loving and a mom who's always got his back. Nietzsche's father, Karl Ludwig, was a pastor, and he named his son after the Prussian king Friedrich Wilhelm IV. But life dealt Nietzsche a tough blow early on. When he was just 5 years old, his father died from a brain illness, leaving young Friedrich and his family in a world of loss. A year later, his younger brother passed away too, piling on the grief for this little kid. But Nietzsche didn't let that define him. Even as a child, he was something special. Picture a 10-year-old writing poems and essays so profound they left his teachers speechless. He played piano, composed music, and fell in love with ancient Greek literature. This was the kind of kid you'd look at and think, man, this guy's gonna do something big. But his life wasn't all sunshine and roses. He battled constant health issues, crippling headaches, vision problems that plagued him his entire life. At 14, Nietzsche got into Forda, one of the most prestigious schools in Germany, where the brightest minds were trained. There, he dove headfirst into classical literature, philosophy, and started questioning the rules society tried to impose on him. He read Plato, Homer, and German poets like Goethe. This is where Nietzsche's razor-sharp critical thinking started to take shape. But it's also where he felt the sting of being misunderstood. His ideas were already too bold for most people around him. In 1864, Nietzsche enrolled at the University of Bonn to study theology and classical philology, but he quickly realized theology wasn't his thing. He switched his focus to philology, the study of ancient Greek and Roman texts, and his talent shone through. Get this. At just 24 years old, he was appointed a professor at the University of Basel in Switzerland. 24. That's unheard of. This guy was a rock star in the academic world. But Nietzsche's life wasn't a smooth, straight path. It was more like a ship sailing through a stormy sea. While at Basel, he became close friends with the legendary composer Richard Wagner. The two bonded over their love for art, music, and big ideas, spending hours debating culture and life. Wagner, with his epic operas, was Nietzsche's idol for a while. But their friendship didn't last. Nietzsche started to see Wagner as a symbol of the things he was beginning to reject, like blind hero worship and nationalism. Their breakup hit Nietzsche hard. And then, there's the drama of his love life. At 37, Nietzsche met Lou Salome, a brilliant, independent woman who captivated him. He fell head over heels and even proposed to her, but Lou turned him down. That rejection stung, but it also fueled some of his deepest thoughts about love, freedom, and what it means to be human. Nietzsche's health kept getting worse. Chronic headaches, vision issues, and other illnesses forced him to quit teaching at Basel in 1879. From then on, he lived a nomadic life, wandering between Italy, Switzerland, and Germany, writing in modest boarding houses. He worked under flickering lamplight, pushing through physical and emotional pain to pour his ideas onto the page. Then, in 1889, at the age of 44, Nietzsche's world came crashing down. One day in Turin, Italy, he saw a horse being brutally whipped. He ran to it, threw his arms around the horse, sobbing, and collapsed. That moment marked his complete mental breakdown. Nietzsche spent the last 11 years of his life in a state of insanity, cared for by his mother and sister before passing away on August 25th, 1900. So that's the story of his life. Short, intense, and full of highs and lows. Philosophy of Friedrich Nietzsche. But what makes Nietzsche a legend? It's his ideas, the ones that turned the world upside down. If you think philosophy is boring, Nietzsche's about to change your mind. He wasn't your typical philosopher, sitting in an ivory tower, scribbling dense essays. Nietzsche was a poet, a rebel, a warrior of ideas. His philosophy is a wake-up call. Live life to the fullest. Become the best version of yourself. Let's start with his most famous line, "God is dead." It's from his book, Thus Spoke Zarathustra. And no, it's not just a provocative jab at religion. Nietzsche was saying something bigger. In the modern world, people were losing faith in absolute truths. Religion, traditional morality, and old belief systems were crumbling. But he didn't see this as a tragedy. It was a chance. He challenged us. If there's no God, no ultimate authority to give your life meaning, how are you going to create that meaning for yourself? This is the heart of Nietzsche's philosophy, nihilism and how to overcome it. He saw that when old values collapse, people can fall into nihilism, the belief that life has no meaning. But Nietzsche didn't leave us in despair. He introduced the idea of the Übermensch, or superhuman. This isn't some comic book superhero. The Übermensch is someone who rises above limitations, creates their own values, and lives authentically. They face pain, embrace challenges, and build a life of meaning on their own terms. Imagine standing at the base of a towering mountain. Most people would look up, see the height, and back away, scared of falling. But Nietzsche's Übermensch starts climbing, not because they're fearless, but because they believe the struggle shapes who they are. Then, there's his concept of the will to power. Nietzsche believed everything in the universe, humans, nature, everything, is driven by an inner force, the desire to grow, to assert oneself, to overcome obstacles. The will to power isn't about dominating others, as some misinterpret it. It's about mastering yourself, pushing past your limits, and living a life that's vibrant and full. Think about the last time you faced a big challenge. Maybe a tough exam, a stressful work project, or a messy relationship. What kept you going? That's the will to power, the fire inside that pushes you to keep moving forward. Another one of Nietzsche's big ideas is amor fati, or love of fate. He said, "Love your life, the good and the bad, because it's all part of who you are." This is a game changer. Instead of complaining about hardships or running from them, embrace every experience because they make you, you. Imagine looking back at your life and saying, "I wouldn't change a thing because it all shaped me." That's amor fati. But Nietzsche wasn't just about big, lofty ideas. He was a sharp critic of society. He called people who blindly follow the crowd, never thinking for themselves, the herd. He attacked traditional morality, especially what he called slave morality, values rooted in weakness, resentment, and fear. Instead, he celebrated master morality, where people confidently create their own values, free from society's approval. Nietzsche throws down a gauntlet. Do you dare to stand out? Do you dare to live on your own terms? His philosophy is like a punch to the face of outdated beliefs. He doesn't give you easy answers. Instead, he tosses you into the deep end of a vast ocean and says, "Swim. Find your own way." Legacy of Friedrich Nietzsche. So how did a frail, lonely guy come up with ideas this powerful? The answer lies in his works. Nietzsche wasn't just a philosopher. He was a writer, a poet, and a cultural critic. His books aren't like other philosophy texts. They're packed with poetry, metaphors, and biting wit. Let's take a look at his most iconic works. First up is The Birth of Tragedy, 1872. His debut book, written when he was a young professor at Basel. In it, he dives into ancient Greek art, especially tragedy, and introduces the idea of two opposing forces: the Apollonian, representing reason, order, and harmony, and the Dionysian, representing passion, chaos, and raw emotion. Nietzsche argued that great art, like the plays of Sophocles or Aeschylus, comes from blending these forces. This book also shows his early love for Wagner, whose music he thought captured that Dionysian spirit. But later, as he grew critical of Wagner, Nietzsche distanced himself from some of these early ideas. Next is Thus Spoke Zarathustra, 1883 to 1885, his masterpiece. This book is unlike any other philosophy text. It's a philosophical fable, centered on Zarathustra, a wandering prophet who shares ideas about the Übermensch, the will to power, and eternal recurrence. The concept that your life might repeat infinitely, so you'd better live in a way you'd be okay with reliving forever. It's like a long, poetic epic, full of vivid imagery and metaphors. It's not an easy read, but if you stick with it, it'll blow your mind and change how you see the world. Then there's Beyond Good and Evil, 1886. In this book, Nietzsche takes a sledgehammer to traditional morality, arguing that good and evil are just concepts humans made up to control each other. He urges us to move beyond these limits and live authentically, free from society's or religion's chains. This book is like a declaration of war on outdated beliefs. On the Genealogy of Morality, 1887, digs into the origins of morality. Nietzsche argues that modern morality, with its focus on compassion and humility, comes from weakness and resentment. He contrasts this with master morality, where people are confident, strong, and create their own values. This book is a wake-up call to question what we've been taught about right and wrong. Finally, Ecce Homo, 1888, is Nietzsche's autobiography, written just before his mental collapse. In it, he reflects on his life and ideas with bold, sometimes arrogant confidence. He famously wrote, "I am not a man, I am dynamite," and he wasn't kidding. His ideas exploded old ways of thinking and forced the world to rethink morality, religion, and the meaning of life. Nietzsche wrote a ton, but what's unique is that he didn't write to make you agree with him. He wanted you to question, to think, to find your own path. His works are like a mirror. When you read them, you see yourself, or who you could become. How Nietzsche's philosophy applies to 21st century challenges. So, what does Friedrich Nietzsche mean for us today, living in the 21st century? His message is as relevant now as ever, maybe even more so in a world full of chaos and uncertainty. First, Nietzsche. Nietzsche teaches us to create our own meaning. In a world where social media, work pressure, and societal norms can leave you feeling lost, Nietzsche says, "You define your life's purpose. Don't let society, religion, or anyone else dictate what matters to you. Be brave enough to figure out what you want." Second, he tells us to embrace hardship. Nietzsche doesn't promise an easy life. He says suffering is part of the deal, but it's in suffering that you find strength. Think of his Amor Fati. Love your fate, even the tough stuff. The next time you're facing a rough day or a big setback, try thinking, "This is part of my journey, and it's making me stronger." Third, Nietzsche calls us to become our best selves. The Übermensch isn't some far-off fantasy. It's a challenge to overcome fear, laziness, and self-imposed limits. Every day ask yourself, what can I do to live more authentically, more boldly, more meaningfully? And finally, he dares us to be different. In a world where everyone's trying to fit in, Nietzsche says, be you. Don't be afraid of being misunderstood or standing alone. Greatness often comes with solitude. Think of the people you admire most. They're usually the ones who dared to go against the grain, right? Nietzsche wasn't perfect. Some of his ideas were controversial, and he's often been misunderstood as supporting violence or authoritarianism. Part of that came from his sister, Elizabeth, who twisted his writings for political purposes after his death. But if you read Nietzsche's own words, you'll see a man who loved freedom, life,
and beauty.
So, who is Friedrich Nietzsche? He was a poet, a philosopher, a warrior of ideas. He was someone who stared into the void of nothingness and said, "I'll create my own light." I want to leave you with a challenge today. Take a moment to reflect. Is your life on the path you want? Are you living for yourself, or just to please others? Let Nietzsche inspire you. Dare to question. Dare to live fiercely. Dare to become the best version of you. Thanks for joining me on this journey through the life and ideas of Friedrich Nietzsche. If this resonated with you, drop a comment, hit that like button, and share this with your friends. Let's keep spreading ideas that change lives. See you in the next video.